So this is going to be another one of those videos where I talk about two games, and honestly I can't believe one of these is being put in such a short form video or review. But the game that I'm going to start off talking about, I think fits perfectly for this style, and that game is Saga of the Moon Priestess. This is a very much an old school Zelda-like. Many people with the series will be very familiar with this style of gameplay, and arguably the best thing about it is, it's about $5. But before we get talking about that game, I have to ask you guys to please hit that like, subscribe button, make sure the bell notification is turned on. There's going to be a lot of videos coming out that I don't want you guys to miss. But anyway, back to Saga of the Moon Priestess. This game, like I said, is very much in the realm of old school Zelda style, where you go from dungeon to dungeon, fighting bosses and collecting equipment and solving puzzles. But in this game, you actually don't start off as the priestess. You actually start as a prince, and you wake up worrying that somebody has ransacked your house. You look around and furniture has been destroyed, and you fear for your father, the king. As soon as you burst into the room, you see a gigantic void, and before you know it, you're kidnapped. This is where the priestess comes in, as the priestess has the miraculous ability to speak to the moon goddess. The moon goddess has basically advised her of what her task is, in saving the prince and ultimately saving the kingdom. Although, unfortunately, the moon goddess could not hook us up with some awesome equipment or some superpowers or anything like that, so we have to do that ourselves. And doing this, of course, we go from dungeon to dungeon, solving puzzles, fighting bosses, all of which are relatively easy. The puzzles aren't confusing, and the bosses are relatively simple, usually having to do with the latest piece of equipment you have. In between then, we also have a kind of a hub village where a lot of the NPCs hang out, and time to time we can go shopping there. But it, for me, is really limited, and a lot of the NPCs don't have that much to say. I don't think that they bring as much life to the table as I would like. It almost feels a little hollow, as pretty much all the NPCs say about one line. And look, I get it. This is a budget game. It's $5. You're not going to get George R.R. Martin in dialogue, but it would be nice to have like a little bit more character in the characters. But I did appreciate the time that they took with the sprites. They're very big and more detailed than normal, and they just kind of pop off the screen a little bit better than I've seen a lot of other Zelda-like games do. I think it just looked really good. And that art style definitely did bring the life that I needed into this game. And for me, the game is fun and does have a charming quality about it. It's a bit repetitive. It's a little stale after a while. And one of my big issues would be that the dungeons themselves just feel like they're the same dungeon in a way. I mean, not completely, but they're all relatively bland. And I guess that's to be expected when you're looking at a budget title. It's not the worst thing for me. In fact, the very worst thing about this game for me is the speed. The character speed is so slow. Like, it's insanely slow. And early on, it is a huge momentum killer when you're just trying to relax and have fun with the game, and you're literally just getting sick of how slow the character's moving. You feel like my joystick is all the way over, and this character's just walking really, really slow. I know that there's a point when that changes a little bit, but it doesn't really change anything. Your character still has some really slow-ass movement. And again, I get it. I understand. It's a budget title. I'm being nitpicky. And yeah, I am, honestly. But at the same time, I can't just overlook that, you know? It's something that really irked me. Everything else about the game I think is fine. It is, like I said, it's bland. It's the same thing. And that's my other big critique, is like, it's a good Zelda clone. If you don't want anything that doesn't bring anything new, if you just want to secure $5 on a fine game that kind of rips off Zelda, then great, you know, and you're not going to be able to get something as quality for that, and I respect that. You know, if you're looking for some of the other titles that do it better, you're going to have to spend like probably 3 times that amount. Things like Blossom Tales and Oceanhorn, those are all games that are at the $14, $15 range, and so I think it kind of just comes down to you. If you're interested in a bare minimum Zelda type game for only $5, then it's a pretty good pickup. But if you're looking for something that steps it up a notch, maybe even close to being on par with some of the old Zeldas, then this is definitely not that game. I would save that $5 and add it to another $10 and buy Blossom Tales 2 or Ocean Heart or Ocean Horn for that matter. There's a lot of other really good Zelda-like games out there that I would spend my money on personally, but again, I can't hate on it completely. So for me, this game gets about a 6 out of 10. So on to the other game that I want to talk about, and this one hurts me. This one hurts me so much. This December, there was a lot of different sales on games, and one of them was Persona 5 Tactica. It was down to like $45 or $41.99, something like that. I think the same sales going on now, which is kind of weird. But anyway, I picked it up because I thought that's a great deal for it, and I'm pretty excited to play it. Persona 5, as many might know, is like one of my favorite games of all time. It's definitely like top 5. It's way up there. Love Persona 5. And I liked Persona 5 Strikers. I thought it could have been a little bit better, but it wasn't bad. You know, there was definitely some issues like with combat and few of like the maps being like really long. I really felt like as soon as you started a dungeon, it just kept going and going and going. But as for this looked to be the type of game that I would really be into. I love strategy RPGs. I love Persona. You combine the two, what more could I wish for? Well, sometimes you need to be careful what you wish for. You may not always like what you get, and that is my situation here. You see, there's a few things about Persona 5 that I think just give it the heart, the soul, the depth that most of us love. It's the characters, it's the story, it's the dialogue, it is the combat, it's the personas themselves, it's creating new personas, meeting a bunch of different people, exploration, the freedom to kind of do what you want when you want to. You can go to a movie, you can hang out with friends, or you can just go grind. All of that is available to you, and the best part about it is also under a gigantic narrative of really being superheroes, of being really good guys. Like, the people you're taking down are legit a-holes. Like, we're talking about some of the scummiest people on Earth. Like, when you get to the first boss and you realize, like, he's harassing young girls, it gives you so much motivation to go after this dude and make him pay. And that's the first bad guy in Persona 5. Persona 5 Tactica, on the other hand, it doesn't have that. Like, a lot of the evil bad guys, they're not that bad. Like, you actually can somewhat sympathize with them in some regard. The story format for me is the complete opposite of Persona 5, where there is an overarching theme to it, and there is an overarching goal. You're still kind of focusing on individuals and their stories and individual enemies and that kind of thing, but not in this one. The whole game is about one person, essentially, and you're dealing with his demons, and it takes away a lot of like exploration. It takes a lot away from story, from characters. There is really about like 2 main characters that you really get to know. And the worst part is the team themselves, like your buddies in the game, you don't get to really interact with them at all. Like, there is no free roaming, which is a huge part of the Persona world. You get to go places, you get to hang out with your friends, you talk, you work on your relationships and whatever. Like, that life sim aspect, completely gone. And they replace it with these long, drawn-out conversations about a topic that really doesn't matter that much. You are trying to get back home, and that's important, but at the same time, you're helping this ex-politician or politician, and it's hard to care about his situation because it's not as epic. It's just not. It's not that big of a deal if you help this dude or not. Really, the only thing that it matters is you getting home. But at the same time, he's like a gigantic whiny turd. He's very annoying to me. There is another aspect of the game, another character that is really cool and really interesting, but you don't actually explore too much about that. You pretty much focus in on this politician who's trying to, prove himself that he's a man, and it's dumb. I wish it was more than that. I really do. Because I was really excited for this game. And one of the worst parts for me is the fact that the combat is really good. When you're in combat, this game is great. Like, it's up there with some of the best strategy RPG games, like as far as abilities and different nuances that you see in those kind of games. Not going to completely get into the whole thing, but, rather it be like Fire Emblem or any of those, it's definitely up there. Like, it does some of those things plus some. It's really good in that regard, and the combat itself is really fun. The problem is it has no heart. It has no soul. Your team, the people that mean so much to you in the first game, or Persona 5, they're just gutted. It's like they're not even there anymore. They look completely different. They go with this like chibi art style, which looks dumb, honestly. I don't like it. I didn't like it, but I thought maybe I could get used to it. But it actually sucks more of the soul out of the game. And the fact that you don't get to talk with them, individually, or you really have anything else happening with them, it just further removes the depth of this game. It takes the soul out of it. And I don't know, like when I said long drawn out conversations, by the way, there were moments in this game that were over an hour of them talking. And you know what? That's fine if it's something you care about. Like Persona 4, there's moments like that, and it's fine because you care and you're actually reading it. You're engaged. This, it's just kind of bad. It's like, who cares? Get me to the fight. But yet, you don't want to miss something crucial about the fight because they do talk about that kind of thing in the game. Although half the time it doesn't matter. The fights are just the fights and they do their own thing. But it's, I don't know. This one broke my heart, honestly. I saw the argument that like, well, it's not a full-fledged game. Okay, well then don't charge a full-fledged price for it if it's not a full-fledged game. And trust me, it's a long game. So there's like 52 missions, I think. Honestly, I got to 45 and I quit. I didn't beat the game. I kind of got to a point where I was like, I'm just doing this to beat it and I'm not enjoying it. Maybe I'll try it again later. Who knows? But for me, I actually advise not getting this game. And if I was going to give it a score, I would give it a 6 out of 10, which is basically the same as I did with the last game. If you're a real Persona fan, you might want to play it just to beat it, just to have it under your, the notch in your belt. But if you're looking at this as being a good strategy RPG to play, nah, it's not. It doesn't have the depth of a lot of those games. It almost feels like it's being hamstrung by the fact that it's a strategy RPG. Even though we've played so many other games like Fire Emblem Engage, Triangle Strategy, Tactics Ogre, all of those games really just build upon the RPGness, the story, the character depth, the whole thing, so much better than this does. And I don't know, that's just my opinion, that's my thoughts. I understand there's some people who are going to completely disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. I'm curious what everyone's thoughts are on these two games. What are your thoughts? Do you own either one of them? Have you played either one of them? Were you excited to play any of them? Anything and everything down in the comment section is much appreciated. I love each and every one of you guys. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.